Hey there, amazing viewers. If you're ready for a story that will shock you to your core and make you question everything, then hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and let me know your first thoughts in the comments below. You won't want to miss a single twist. The uninvited guest. The clinking of glasses and joyous laughter echoed through the crowded restaurant, but all I could hear was the frantic thump of my own heart. There she was, across the room, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulder as she laughed with my husband. Correction, my ex-husband of 3 hours. Veronica's hand rested protectively on her swollen belly, carrying what should have been my future. Everyone raised their glasses, toasting the happy couple and their impending arrival. They didn't see me slip in through the back door, clutching an envelope that would change everything. 6 months of relentless investigation, 6 months of tears and sleepless nights had led to this very moment. "To new beginnings," someone shouted, and the crowd echoed the sentiment. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The click of my heels on the polished wooden floor somehow cut through the celebratory din. Heads began to turn. Liam saw me first. His smile vanished instantly. Our eyes met across the room, and for a brief, fleeting second, I saw something flicker in his gaze. Guilt? Perhaps even regret? "Imani," he whispered. But somehow, I heard it from across the room. Veronica turned next, her perfect smile freezing on her face as she spotted me. Her hand instinctively moved to shield her belly. The same protective gesture I had imagined making countless times during the 5 years of our marriage, when we had tried and failed to conceive. "What is she doing here?" Veronica hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. I kept walking until I reached their table. The room had fallen completely silent. Liam stood, towering over me as he always had. "You weren't invited," he said, his voice strained. "The divorce is final. There's nothing left to say." I smiled, feeling strangely calm, despite the hurricane of emotions raging inside me. "Actually, Liam, there's a lot left to say. And after you hear what's in this envelope, you might want to shred those divorce papers." Without waiting for permission, I placed the envelope on the table. Veronica lunged for it, but I snatched it away. "This isn't for you," I said, my voice firm. "Though it concerns you greatly." Liam's mother, Eleanor, stepped forward, her face contorted with anger. "Imani, you need to leave. My son has moved on. You should too." I met her gaze, the woman who had never truly accepted me into her family. "Ms. Peterson, with all due respect, you might want to hear this too. It's about your grandchild." The room collectively held its breath. Liam reached for the envelope. His hand trembled slightly. I watched his face as he opened it, his eyes scanning the contents. I knew exactly what he was reading. The DNA test results, the medical records, the fertility specialist's report. His knees buckled, and he collapsed into his chair. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked up at me with a mixture of disbelief and devastation. How is this possible?" he whispered. I took the envelope and faced the stunned crowd. "I think Liam and I need to talk in private. It seems there's been a terrible misunderstanding about many things, including who can and cannot have children in this marriage." As I led a shocked Liam away from the celebration-turned-disaster, I could hear Veronica calling out to him, demanding to know what was happening. But for once, he didn't rush to her side. He followed me, his world completely turned upside down by the truth he had finally uncovered. The truth that would give us both a second chance at the life we were meant to have together. 8 months earlier, I had returned home early from a business trip, excited to surprise Liam. We had been trying for a baby for years, and I had just finished another round of fertility treatments. The doctor had been optimistic this time, and I couldn't wait to give Liam the good news. Our dream of starting a family might finally come true. I entered our suburban home light-footed, the key turning silently in the lock. I had even bought Liam his favorite dessert, chocolate lava cake from that little downtown bakery that always had a line out the door. I'd stood in that line for 30 minutes, imagining the smile on his face when I walked through the door. But the house was silent when I entered. Too silent. "Liam!" I called out, dropping my suitcase in the hallway. No answer, but I heard a faint noise coming from upstairs. Our bedroom. I climbed the stairs, still clutching the bakery box, my mind not yet processing what my instincts were already screaming at me. I pushed open our bedroom door, and the world stopped spinning. Liam and Veronica, my colleague, my friend, or so I thought, entangled in our sheets. My sheets, the ones I'd picked out during our anniversary trip to Charleston last year. They didn't notice me at first. I stood there, frozen. The bakery box slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. That's when they looked up. "Imani," Liam said, scrambling up and wrapping the sheet around his waist. "You're supposed to be in New York until tomorrow." Veronica didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She simply sat up slowly, dropping the sheet as she reached for her clothes. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded strange and distant to my own ears. "Imani, I can explain," Liam began. "How long?" I repeated, each word sharp enough to cut. 6 months, Veronica answered for him, pulling her blouse over her head. "But it's more than just sex, Imani. We're in love." I laughed then, a hollow sound that echoed off the walls of the home I'd made with the man I loved. Love? In our bed? Behind my back? While I went for fertility treatments and prayed every night for a baby? Liam stepped toward me, hand outstretched. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. I took a step back. "Don't touch me." Veronica stood, fully dressed now. She had the audacity to look at me with pity. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Imani. But maybe it's for the best. It's a fresh start for everyone." I turned to her, the person who had listened to me cry about my fertility struggles over lunch in the office cafeteria. "Get out of my house." "Actually," Liam said, his voice gaining confidence, "I think you both should leave for a bit, so we can all cool down." I stared at him. The stranger with my husband's face. "You want me to leave?" "Just temporarily, so we can talk when everyone's calmer." "I'm perfectly calm," I said, though I felt tears streaming down my face. "And I'm not going anywhere. This is my house too." "Imani, be reasonable," Veronica said, stepping toward me as if I were a wild animal that might lash out. "Liam and I need to talk about our future." "Your future?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What future?" Liam cleared his throat, looking at the floor, the walls, anywhere but me. "Veronica's pregnant." 2 words, just 2 words, and my entire world collapsed. "That's impossible," I whispered. The doctor said you had fertility issues," Veronica corrected, her hand moving to her still flat stomach in that protective gesture that would haunt my nightmares. "No, Liam." I looked at my husband, searching his face for any sign that this was all a terrible mistake, but all I saw was guilt and relief. Relief that his secret was finally out. "I want you both out of my house," I said, my voice firm, despite the earthquake happening inside me. "Now." "Imani, this is my house too," Liam argued, "and we need to talk about what happens next." "What happens next is I'm calling a lawyer," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Don't be dramatic," Veronica said with a sigh. "These things happen. People fall out of love, fall in love with someone else. It's not the end of the world." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw none of the friend I thought I knew. "It's the end of my world, and you helped end it." I turned and walked out of the room, downstairs and straight to my car. I didn't take anything. I couldn't bear to touch anything in that house right then. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw them both standing in the bedroom window, watching me leave. That was the last time I stayed in the home Liam and I had built together. By the time I returned 3 days later, with my sister, to pack some clothes, Liam had already moved Veronica in. My toothbrush was gone from the bathroom sink, replaced by her expensive facial cleansers and creams. Just like that, I was erased. 2 months after I'd caught Liam and Veronica, I was barely functioning. I'd moved in with my sister Sarah, sleeping on her pull-out couch and crying myself to sleep every night. I'd taken a leave from work. I couldn't face the pitying glances from my co-workers, who had already heard about Veronica's pregnancy and my husband's betrayal. "You need to eat something," Sarah said, placing a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. It was noon, and I was still in my pajamas, staring blankly at the divorce papers my lawyer had sent. "I'm not hungry," I mumbled, pushing the plate away. Sarah sat across from me, her face sad in that determined expression I knew so well. "Imani, it's been 2 months. You need to start living again. My husband got another woman pregnant while we were married," I said bluntly. "After 5 years of trying for a baby together. Excuse me if I'm not bouncing back as quickly as you'd like." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "I know it hurts, but you can't let them take everything from you. Your job, your health, your spirit, that's letting them win." I pulled my hand away. "This isn't a competition, Sarah." "Damn right it is," she retorted, her eyes flashing. "Veronica took your husband, your home, and the baby you always wanted, and you're just giving up. What am I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Fight for a man who clearly doesn't want me? Who's having a baby with someone else?" Sarah got up and went to her purse. She pulled out a business card and placed it in front of me. "You start by finding out the truth." I picked up the card. It was for a private investigator named Samuel Wright. "What is this?" I asked, confused. "Something doesn't add up," Sarah said, sitting back down. "You and Liam tried for years to have a baby. All those tests showed his sperm count was low. The doctors said it would be difficult for him to conceive a child naturally. And suddenly Veronica's pregnant after a few months? It doesn't make sense." I hadn't thought about that, in the shock and pain of Liam's betrayal. I hadn't stopped to question the pregnancy itself. "You think she's lying?" I asked, a tiny spark of hope flickering in my chest. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But don't you want to find out? Before you sign those papers and walk away from everything you built with Liam?" I looked at the business card, turning it over in my hands. What would this Samuel Wright do? For starters, he'd look into Veronica's background, check her medical records if he can access them, follow her, see if she's actually going to prenatal appointments, or if it's all a show. "That sounds illegal," I said. Sarah shrugged. "Not entirely. And wouldn't knowing the truth be worth it?" I thought about Liam, about the life we'd planned together, the nursery we'd started designing before the last round of failed fertility treatments shattered our hopes, about how quickly he'd replaced me with Veronica. "Even if the baby isn't his," I said slowly, "he still cheated on me. He still chose her." "Maybe," Sarah said, pushing the plate of eggs toward me. "But maybe there's more to the story. You won't know unless you investigate." I picked up a fork and took a small bite of the eggs, the first food I'd tasted all day. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll call the investigator." At the private investigator's office, Samuel Wright's office was in a small, nondescript building downtown. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that instantly put me at ease. "Your sister explained some of the situation," he said after I sat across from his cluttered desk, "but I'd like to hear it from you." I told him everything. The years of fertility treatments, catching Liam and Veronica, the pregnancy announcement, the impending divorce. "And you have doubts about the child's paternity?" he asked, making notes. "I don't know," I admitted. "It just seems strange that she got pregnant so easily when Liam and I tried for so long. The doctors told us his sperm count was low." Samuel nodded thoughtfully. People with low sperm counts can still have children. It's just less likely. I know, I said, deflating a little. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws. Or maybe your instincts are telling you something, he countered. Allow me to look into Ms. Veronica Jenkins and see what I can find. In the meantime, don't sign those divorce papers. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something other than despair. Maybe it wasn't hope exactly, but it was a reason to get out of bed in the morning. A reason to keep going. 3 weeks later, Samuel called me with news. I think you should come to my office, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I have information you'll want to see in person. I rushed downtown, my heart pounding. Samuel was waiting for me with a thick folder on his desk. What did you find? I asked, sitting down. Several interesting things, he said, opening the folder. First, Ms. Jenkins has been seeing a fertility specialist, Dr. Patrice Coleman, the same one you and your husband consulted. I did. I nodded, confused. Why would she need a fertility specialist if she got pregnant so easily? Exactly, Samuel said, sliding a document across the desk. I managed to obtain some of her medical records. She's been a patient of Dr. Coleman's for over a year, which means she started seeing her before she began her affair with your husband. I picked up the document, scanning it quickly. But that would mean she knew about your fertility issues before she got involved with Liam. Samuel finished for me. She specifically targeted a fertility clinic where she knew you were a patient. How would that help her? I asked, still trying to process this information. Samuel slid another document toward me. Because Veronica Jenkins has a condition called endometriosis. According to these records, her doctor told her it would be extremely difficult for her to conceive naturally. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So she, what? Faked being pregnant to steal my husband? Not exactly, Samuel said, his expression grim. She is pregnant, but according to her medical records, she underwent in vitro fertilization 2 months before you discovered her affair with Liam. In vitro? I repeated, stunned. But that would mean the baby isn't Liam's, Samuel confirmed. At least not in the way you think. I stared at Samuel, trying to make sense of what he was telling me. If Veronica had IVF, then where did she get the sperm? Samuel finished for me when I couldn't bring myself to say the words. That's where it gets complicated. He pulled out another document and laid it in front of me. It was a form from the fertility clinic, authorizing the use of stored sperm for in vitro fertilization. My eyes went immediately to the signature at the bottom, a signature I knew as well as my own. Liam Peterson, I whispered, my fingers tracing my husband's signature. I don't understand. Liam and I stored sperm samples at the clinic for our fertility treatments. How could Veronica access those? Samuel leaned forward, his expression grim. According to my investigation, Dr. Coleman assisted her. There's evidence that Veronica paid the doctor a substantial sum of money to falsify authorization documents. My head spun. Are you saying Veronica stole my husband's sperm? That she used our saved samples to get pregnant behind my back? That's exactly what I'm saying, Samuel confirmed. And there's more. Based on the timeline, she got pregnant first, and then pursued Liam. She didn't have an affair, and accidentally get pregnant. She deliberately got pregnant with his child, and then seduced him. I felt sick, but why? Why would she do this? Samuel hesitated. I found something else in my investigation, something about your friendship with Veronica. He pulled out a stack of printed papers, emails, from what I could see. These are messages between Veronica and her sister. They go back several years to when you first started working together. I took the emails with trembling hands and began to read. What I saw chilled me to the bone. Page after page of Veronica's jealousy and resentment toward me. Comments about how I didn't deserve my success at work, my beautiful home, my loving husband. How she had watched Liam and me together at company events and convinced herself he would be happier with her. She planned this for years, I said, looking up at Samuel in shock. She befriended me, listened to all my struggles with infertility, and then used that information to take everything from me. So it seems, Samuel said quietly. And there's one more thing you should know. Dr. Coleman is now under investigation for several ethical violations. When I started asking questions about Veronica's treatments, it triggered an internal review. They found evidence that she'd done this before, helping women use stored sperm samples without proper authorization. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed by everything I was learning. So the baby Veronica is carrying is biologically Liam's child? Samuel confirmed, but he didn't conceive it in the traditional sense. She stole genetic material that you and Liam had set aside for your future family. Does Liam know any of this? I asked. I doubt it, Samuel replied. Based on my surveillance, Veronica has told him the baby is his from their affair. He has no reason to question it. I thought about the divorce papers waiting for my signature, about the life I thought was over. What do I do with this information? Samuel gathered the documents and placed them in a folder, which he handed to me. That's entirely up to you, Ms. Peterson. But if I were you, I'd want your husband to know the truth before any divorce is finalized. I clutched the folder to my chest. He might not believe me. Veronica has convinced him I'm just bitter and trying to ruin their happiness. These documents aren't opinions or accusations, Samuel said, tapping the folder. They're facts, medical records, email evidence. You have the truth on your side now. I nodded slowly, a plan beginning to form in my mind. Thank you, Samuel. You've given me more than just information. You've given me a fighting chance. Just doing my job, he said with a small smile. And, Ms. Peterson, whatever you decide to do with this information, be careful. Veronica has shown she's willing to go to extremes to get what she wants. Call to action. What would you do in Imani's shoes? Would you expose Veronica publicly or confront Liam in private? Share your strategies in the comments below. Setting the truth bomb. Leaving Samuel's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Strength. The weight of betrayal and heartbreak was still there, but now it was joined by a fierce determination. Liam deserved to know the truth about the woman he'd left me for, about the child she was carrying, and I deserved a chance to reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. Over the next week, I immersed myself in every document Samuel had given me. I read the medical records until I understood every term, every procedure. I studied the emails between Veronica and her sister, learning the depth of her deception. I even contacted the clinic, and posing as a concerned patient, learned that Dr. Coleman had been suspended pending an investigation. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. Not just at Veronica, but at myself, for having been so easily duped. She had sat across from me at lunch. She had listened to me cry about failed fertility treatments, and all the while, she had been plotting to steal my life. Are you sure you want to do this? Sarah asked, as she watched me prepare for what I called Operation Truth Bomb. I looked up from the timeline I was creating, a clear, detailed account of Veronica's deception, one that even Liam couldn't deny. I've never been more sure of anything. He hurt you, Imani, Sarah reminded me gently. He believed Veronica over you. He moved her into your house while you were still reeling from finding them together. I know, I said, unable to deny the pain those memories still caused. But he was manipulated too. Maybe not as badly as I was, but still. He deserves to know that the baby Veronica is carrying was conceived through stolen genetic material, not their affair. And then what? Sarah pressed. Let's say you tell him. He believes you. What happens next? I paused, considering her question. What did I want to happen next? Did I want Liam back after everything? Did I want revenge? Justice? I don't know, I admitted finally. I just know I need to tell him the truth. What he does with that information is up to him. Sarah sat beside me and took my hand. I'm worried about you, sis. Veronica has already shown how far she'll go to get what she wants. What if she tries to hurt you when you expose her? That's why we're not doing this in private, I explained. I've been keeping an eye on their social media. They're having a party to celebrate the divorce being final. Can you believe it? A divorce party, like it's something to celebrate. That's cruel, Sarah agreed. Frowning. It's the perfect opportunity, I continued. Everyone will be there. Liam's family, his friends, probably even some of our old colleagues. I'll confront them publicly with all the evidence. Veronica won't be able to spin the narrative if dozens of people hear the truth at once. That sounds dramatic, Sarah said, a look of uncertainty in her eyes. It is dramatic, I acknowledged. But so is stealing someone's husband and their frozen sperm. We both sat in silence for a moment, the enormity of Veronica's deception hanging between us. What if he doesn't care? Sarah asked quietly. What if he finds out how the baby was really conceived and decides he still wants to be with Veronica? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I hadn't allowed myself to consider that possibility. Then at least I'll know I did everything I could. At least I won't spend the rest of my life wondering if things could have been different if he'd known the truth. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, I'm with you. What's the plan? Over the next few days, we prepared meticulously. I made copies of all the crucial documents. I rehearsed what I would say, how I would present the evidence. I even went shopping for a new outfit, a red dress that made me feel powerful and confident. The night before the divorce party, I sat alone in Sarah's apartment, looking at old photos of Liam and me. There we were on our wedding day, both radiant with hope for the future. There we were hiking in the mountains, his arm around my waist as we posed against a backdrop of autumn leaves. There we were at the hospital after my first fertility treatment. His eyes filled with love and encouragement. Had it all been a lie? Had our marriage been as solid as I believed? Or had there been cracks I hadn't noticed? Had I been so focused on having a baby that I'd neglected other aspects of our relationship? No, I told myself firmly. I had been a good wife. I had loved Liam with everything I had. What happened wasn't my fault. It was the result of Veronica's calculated manipulation and Liam's weakness to it. I put the photos away and went to bed, sleeping soundly for the first time in months. When I woke up the next morning, I felt clear-headed and resolute. Today was the day everything would change. Today was the day the truth would come out. Sarah helped me get ready, doing my hair and makeup with more care than usual. You look beautiful, she said when we were done, her eyes a little teary. Thanks, I replied, smoothing the front of my red dress. For everything. I couldn't have gotten through these past few months without you. That's what sisters are for, she said, giving me a quick hug. Are you ready for this? I took a deep breath and nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The confrontation at the Grand Bistro. The fateful divorce party was being held at the Grand Bistro, an upscale downtown restaurant where Liam and I had celebrated our 3rd anniversary. Another twisted knife from Veronica, I was sure. I had Sarah drop me off a block away. I wanted to make my entrance alone. As I walked toward the restaurant, the envelope of evidence clutched in my hand, I felt strangely calm. Whatever happened, I would face it with dignity and strength. I had survived the worst betrayal imaginable. I could survive anything. I entered through this back door, unnoticed at first, as the celebration was in full swing. I spotted Liam immediately, standing near the center of the room with Veronica by his side. She wore a fitted blue dress that showcased her 5-month pregnant belly. They were surrounded by well-wishers, everyone raising glasses and toasting. This was it. The moment of truth. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the wooden floor, and watched as heads began to turn in my direction. The room gradually fell silent as people noticed me. The ex-wife, the woman who had been replaced, ruining their celebration. Liam saw me. His smile vanished instantly, Our eyes met across the room, and I held his gaze steadily, refusing to look away. It was time for everyone to hear the truth. "Imani," Liam said, his voice cutting through the sudden silence in the room. "What are you doing here?" I walked forward, aware of all eyes on me. Veronica's hand tightened on Liam's arm, her face a mask of anger and surprise. "She wasn't invited," Veronica hissed loudly. "Someone call security." "I won't be long," I said calmly, stopping a few feet from them. "I just came to give Liam a divorce gift." I held up the envelope, watching as confusion replaced anger on Veronica's face. "We don't want anything from you," she spat, but I could see the flicker of unease in her eyes. She knew what I might know. She was afraid. "Good. This isn't for you," I told her, keeping my voice even. "Though it concerns you greatly," I turned to Liam, holding out the envelope. "Before you start your new life, there are a few things you should know about the woman you've chosen, and the baby she's carrying." Liam frowned, looking from me to the envelope. "Imani, if this is some kind of attempt to cause trouble, it's the truth," I cut him off, "something that's been in short supply lately." Liam's mother, Eleanor, stepped forward, her face contorted with disapproval. "This is inappropriate, Imani. The divorce is final. It's time for everyone to move on." I held her gaze steadily. "Ms. Peterson, with all due respect, you might want to hear this too. It's about your grandchild." That got her attention. She took a step back, her expression uncertain. "Liam," Veronica said, tugging on his arm. "Come on, she's clearly just here to make a scene." But Liam was already reaching for the envelope, curiosity overriding caution. I let him take it, watching as he pulled out the contents, the medical records, the clinic documents, the emails. "What is this?" he asked, frowning as he began to read. "Evidence," I said simply. "Evidence that Veronica didn't get pregnant from your affair. She was already pregnant when she pursued you." A murmur went through the crowd. Veronica's face paled. "That's ridiculous," she stammered. "Liam, don't listen to her. She's making things up because she's bitter about the divorce." But Liam wasn't listening to her. He was reading the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, then to horror. "In vitro fertilization," he read aloud, looking up at Veronica. "You had IVF. When?" Veronica swallowed hard. "She's lying. Those documents are fake." "They're not fake," I said, addressing both the room and Liam. "They're from the fertility clinic, where Liam and I were patients. The same clinic where we stored sperm samples for future treatments. The same clinic where Veronica bribed a doctor to access those samples without authorization." The murmur in the room grew louder. Veronica's face was now livid, her hand protectively covering her belly. "It's not true," she insisted, but her voice was weak. Liam kept reading, flipping through the pages with trembling hands. "These emails. Veronica, what is this? You've been planning this for years." "She has." I stepped closer, my voice low, but clear. "She befriended me at work. She listened to all my struggles with infertility, and then used that information against me. She paid Dr. Coleman, who, by the way, is now under investigation, to use our stored sperm to get pregnant. Then she seduced you, knowing you'd believe the baby was conceived naturally." "Is this true?" Liam asked Veronica, his voice cracking. "Did you do this?" For a moment, Veronica looked like she might continue to deny everything. Then her expression hardened, her vulnerability replaced by defiance. "So what if I did?" she said, lifting her chin. "You weren't happy with her anyway. I just helped things along." "Helped things along?" Liam repeated in disbelief. "You stole medical samples. You manipulated both of us." "I got pregnant with your baby," Veronica retorted, her voice rising. "Isn't that what you always wanted? A child of your own, something she couldn't give you." The cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow, but I stood my ground. "I couldn't give him a child due to medical issues, Veronica. Issues you exploited. You didn't just steal my husband, you stole our future family. The baby is still biologically yours, I told Liam, my voice softening. But it wasn't conceived the way you thought. Everything Veronica has told you has been a lie. Liam looked back at the documents, then at Veronica's belly, then at me. I could see the understanding dawning in his eyes, the realization of how thoroughly he had been manipulated. All those times you comforted Imani about our fertility struggles, he said to Veronica, his voice hollow. Were you planning this all along? Veronica's eyes darted around the room, taking in the shocked and disgusted faces surrounding her. You don't understand, she said desperately. I love you, Liam. I always have. I just wanted us to be together. By stealing my sperm? Liam asked, his voice rising. By getting pregnant behind my back and then pretending it happened naturally? That's not love, Veronica. That's criminal. Ms. Peterson stepped forward, reaching for the documents in Liam's hands. Let me see that, she demanded, her voice trembling. As she read the evidence, her face contorted with rage. You manipulated my son? You stole medical samples to trick him into leaving his wife? She turned to her son. Liam, how could you not see who this woman was? Liam looked devastated, his earlier confidence completely gone. I don't know, Mom. I don't know. I took a step back, feeling suddenly out of place in this family drama. I had done what I came to do, reveal the truth. What happened next wasn't up to me. I'll leave you to discuss this, I said quietly, turning to go. Imani, wait! Liam called out to me, his voice urgent. Please don't go. I stopped, surprised by the plea in his voice. I've said what I came to say, Liam, but we need to talk about this, he insisted, stepping toward me. About what it means. Veronica grabbed his arm. What it means? It means nothing. So what if I got pregnant by IVF? The baby is still yours. It means everything, Liam said, pulling away from her. It means our entire relationship is built on lies and manipulation. He turned back to me, his eyes filled with regret and confusion. Imani, please, can we go somewhere and talk, in private? I hesitated, looking at the stunned faces of the party guests. This wasn't how I expected things to play out. I had imagined dropping my bomb and walking away, leaving Liam to deal with the fallout. I hadn't prepared for him to want to talk. Okay, I said finally, we can talk. As we headed for the exit, Veronica's voice rang out, sharp and panicked. Liam, you can't just leave me here. What about the baby? Liam paused, turning to look at her one last time. The baby is innocent in all of this, and I will take responsibility for my child. But you and I are done, Veronica. What you did was unforgivable. Veronica's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. You don't mean that. You love me. I loved who I thought you were, Liam replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. Not who you really are. He turned and followed me out of the restaurant, leaving Veronica standing alone in the middle of her ruined celebration, facing the stunned silence and unexpected questions. Call to action. This story is getting intense. If you're on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping tales. A Yoda-like call and a new beginning. Liam and I sat across from each other in a small coffee shop, 3 blocks from the restaurant. We hadn't spoken during the walk, both lost in our own thoughts. Now, with steaming mugs between us, the silence felt overwhelming. I don't even know where to begin, Liam said finally, staring into his coffee as if it held answers. Me neither, I admitted. I didn't plan past telling you the truth. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with remorse. I'm so sorry, Imani, for everything. For hurting you. For not seeing Veronica for who she was. For throwing our marriage away. Why did you do it? I asked. The question that had tormented me for months finally escaped. Was it just about the baby? Liam shook his head slowly. No. At least, I didn't think it was at the time. After our last failed fertility treatment, I was lost. I felt like I was failing you, failing us. Veronica was there, listening, understanding. She made me feel like I wasn't a disappointment. You were never a disappointment to me, I said quietly. We were in this together. The treatments, the disappointments, everything. Or so I thought. We were, he insisted, reaching across the table as if to take my hand, then thinking better of it. But then Veronica told me she was pregnant, and it was like proof that I wasn't the problem, that I could be a father after all. It made me question everything the doctors had told us. But you were the problem, I said, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. Your sperm count was low. That's why we were storing samples from your good days. Samples Veronica stole. Liam winced at my words, but nodded. I know that now. I can't believe I was so easily manipulated. So willing to believe what I wanted to believe. You wanted a baby more than you wanted our marriage, I said, the pain still fresh. No, he said firmly, meeting my eyes. I wanted our baby. I just got confused about how to make it happen. I let Veronica convince me she was the answer. I was weak and stupid, and I hurt the person I loved most in the world. His confession hung between us, neither of us sure what to do with it. What are you going to do now? I asked. About Veronica? About the baby? Liam ran a hand over his face, looking suddenly exhausted. I don't know. The baby is innocent in all of this. He's biologically my son. Our son, really, since those were samples we collected together for our future family. But the way Veronica did this, he shook his head in disgust. I can't stay with her. I can't build a life with someone capable of such deception. But you'll be tied to her forever through this child, I pointed out. Yes, he acknowledged. And I'll have to figure out how to co-parent with her. But that doesn't mean I have to be with her. I took a sip of my coffee, buying time as I carefully considered my next words. Where does that leave us? Liam looked at me, his expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. I don't know. I hurt you terribly. I betrayed your trust. I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see me again. I'm here, aren't I? I said softly. You're here to tell me the truth about Veronica, he corrected. Not to get back together. True, I admitted. But I wouldn't have gone to all that trouble if I didn't care what happened to you. Liam's eyes lit up slightly at my words. Does that mean there's a chance? For us? I thought about the months of pain I had endured. The nights crying myself to sleep. The humiliation of being so easily replaced. But I also thought about the 5 years of marriage before that. The good years. The happy years. The years of building a life together. I don't know, I said honestly. Too much has happened. Too much has changed. And now there's a baby involved. A baby who, as you pointed out, is biologically yours. And yours in a way, Liam added. Those were our samples collected for our future children. I hadn't allowed myself to think of it that way yet. The baby Veronica was carrying had been conceived with genetic material meant for my child with Liam. It was a strange, uncomfortable thought. I need time, I said finally, to process everything, to figure out what I want. Liam nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk again. We finished our coffee in silence, both overwhelmed by the day's events and the uncertain future ahead. As we stood to leave, Liam hesitated, then asked, "Can I hug you?" Just once, I nodded, stepping into his embrace. His arms around me felt familiar and strange all at once. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember what it felt like to be loved by him, to be safe in his arms. "Thank you," he whispered against my hair, "for telling me the truth, for giving me a chance to make things right." I pulled away, not quite ready to forgive so easily. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because the truth matters." "I know," he said, his hands dropping to his sides. "But I'm grateful all the same." We parted ways outside the coffee shop, Liam heading back to deal with the fallout at the restaurant, me walking to the bus stop to go home to Sarah's apartment. As I waited for the bus, my phone vibrated with a text message from Liam. I meant what I said. I'll wait as long as it takes. I didn't reply, tucking my phone into my bag. I didn't know what the future held for us, if anything. But for the first time in months, I felt like I had choices again. Possibilities. Power. What happened next would be on my terms. 2 weeks after the confrontation at the divorce party, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Imani Peterson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Nurse Davis from Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Veronica Jenkins. You're listed as her emergency contact." I almost dropped the phone in surprise. "I'm sorry. There must be a mistake. We're not friends." "Oh," the nurse sounded confused. "Well, you're the only contact on her file. She was admitted a few hours ago for pregnancy complications." My mind raced. Why would Veronica put me down as an emergency contact? It had to be from before our fallout, when we were still friends and colleagues. She probably just never changed it. "Have you tried contacting Liam Peterson?" I asked. "He's the father. We tried the number she gave us for him, but we couldn't reach him," the nurse explained. "Ms. Jenkins is specifically asking for you. She says it's important." I hesitated, torn between my lingering anger and my conscience. Whatever Veronica had done, she was carrying a child connected to Liam, and in a strange way to me. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I heard myself say. When I arrived at the hospital, I was directed to the maternity ward. Veronica was in a private room, pale and small against the stark white hospital sheets. Her hand rested protectively on her belly. She looked up as I entered. Surprise and relief flooded her face. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't either," I admitted, staying near the door. "What's going on, Veronica? Why am I your emergency contact?" "I never changed it from when we were friends," she said quietly. "And I didn't know who else to call." "What about Liam?" I asked. "Or your sister?" Veronica looked away. "Liam hasn't returned my calls since the party, and my sister lives in Seattle. She wouldn't make it in time." "In time for what?" I asked, a growing sense of dread. "What's happening?" Veronica's eyes filled with tears. "They think something's wrong with the baby. I started bleeding this morning, and the doctors are worried about a placental abruption." Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. I knew how much she had wanted a child. She had felt that maternal protectiveness even before conception. Whatever twisted methods Veronica had used, she clearly cared about the baby she was carrying. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "What are the doctors saying?" "They're going to do an emergency C-section if things get worse." Her voice trembled. "The baby's only 24 weeks. The chances of survival are..." She trailed off, unable to continue. I moved closer, propelled by an instinct I couldn't quite explain. "Have they given you steroids for the baby's lungs?" Veronica nodded. "Yes. They're doing everything they can, but..." She looked at me, her expression more vulnerable than I had ever seen it. "I'm scared, Imani. I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but I didn't know who else to turn to." I sank into the chair beside her bed, conflicting emotions swirling inside me. "I don't hate you, Veronica. I'm angry about what you did. I'm hurt, but I don't hate you." She reached out to take my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I let her. "I never meant for things to go this far," she whispered. "I just wanted what you had. The perfect husband, the perfect life. I convinced myself I deserved it more because I could give him a child. My life wasn't perfect," I told her. "And neither was Liam. We were just two people doing our best to build a life together, with all the joy and pain that comes with it." Veronica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I see that now. Too late." A monitor beside her bed began to beep rapidly, and her face contorted in pain. "Something's wrong," she gasped, clutching her belly. I jumped up and ran to the door, calling for help. Within seconds, Nurses and doctors flooded the room, pushing me aside as they attended to Veronica. "Blood pressure's dropping," one of them shouted. "We need to get her to surgery now." As Veronica was rushed out of the room, a nurse turned to me. "Are you family?" "No, I'm just a friend," I said, the word feeling strange on my tongue. "Can you contact her family, the baby's father? They should get here as soon as possible." I nodded, already reaching for my phone. Despite everything, I knew I needed to call Liam. This was about his child now, not our broken relationship or Veronica's deception. He answered on the first ring. Imani? Imani? Is everything okay?" "It's Veronica," I said quickly. "She's at Memorial Hospital. There are complications with the baby. They're taking her for an emergency C-section. I'm on my way," he said, without hesitation, and hung up. As I waited for Liam, I paced the hospital hallway, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I shouldn't care about Veronica or her pregnancy after what she'd done to me. And yet, I found myself praying for her and the baby's safety. When Liam arrived, he looked almost as pale as Veronica. "Any news?" he asked, his eyes wild with worry. "Nothing yet," I said, leading him to the waiting room. "They took her back about 20 minutes ago." He slumped into a chair, his head in his hands. "I should have answered her calls. I was so angry about everything, I just completely ignored her." "This isn't your fault," I assured him, sitting beside him. "Sometimes these things just happen in pregnancy." "Why are you here?" he asked suddenly, looking up at me. "After everything she did to you." I shrugged, unable to fully explain it myself. She needed someone. I guess I couldn't turn my back on her or the baby. Liam reached for my hand, his grip firm. "You're an incredible woman, Imani Peterson." We sat in silence after that, waiting for news, both lost in our own thoughts. An hour passed, then another. Finally, a doctor emerged, his surgical mask pulled down to his neck. "Mr. Peterson?" he asked, approaching us. Liam stood quickly. "Yes, that's me. Me!" "Your wife is stable," the doctor said, and Liam didn't correct the assumption about our relationship. "We had to perform an emergency C-section. The baby is extremely premature, 23 weeks and 5 days, but he's a fighter. He's been taken to the NICU." "He?" Liam repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "It's a boy?" "Yes," the doctor confirmed with a small smile. "A very tiny boy, but he's holding his own for now. The next 72 hours will be critical." "Can I see them?" Liam asked. "Ms. Jenkins is still in recovery, but you can see the baby briefly." "Follow me." Liam turned to me, conflict in his eyes. "You go," I said, understanding his unspoken question. "I'll wait here." After Liam left, I sank into the waiting room chair, trying to process everything that had happened. A tiny baby, fighting for his life. A baby created from genetic material that should have been used for my child with Liam. A baby who would forever connect the three of us in a complicated and unprecedented way. What did that mean for me? For any future I might have with Liam? Could I accept this child as part of our lives if Liam and I ever got back together? I had no answers to any of these questions. All I knew was that somewhere in this hospital, a miracle was unfolding. A tiny life was beginning against all odds. And somehow, I was a part of this story, whether I would have chosen it or not. The way it goes. Chalapa. Over the next month, the hospital became a second home. Despite my complicated feelings toward Veronica, I found myself visiting the NICU regularly, drawn to the tiny fighter who had come into the world too soon. Liam was there every day, splitting his time between Veronica's recovery room and the NICU, where his son, whom they had named Elijah, fought for his life. "You don't have to keep coming," Liam told me one afternoon as we stood side by side, watching Elijah through the incubator glass. "This isn't your responsibility." "I know," I said, my eyes fixed on the tiny form hooked up to tubes and wires, connecting him to the machines that kept him alive. But I want to be here. And it was true. Somewhere, between the beeping of the monitors and the whispered conversations with the NICU nurses, I had developed a bond with this child, who had entered the world under such strange circumstances. "Veronica asked about you today," Liam said cautiously. "She wants to see you if you're willing." I hesitated, unsure if I was ready for that conversation. Veronica and I hadn't spoken since the night she was rushed into surgery. Nurses had told me she asked about me, but I'd always managed to schedule my visits when she was resting, or with her sister, who had flown in from Seattle the day after Elijah's birth. "I'll think about it," I promised, not committing either way. 2 days later, I found myself standing outside Veronica's hospital room, steeling myself. She was being discharged tomorrow, while Elijah would remain in the NICU for several more weeks, possibly months. If I was going to talk to her, it had to be now. I knocked softly and entered when I heard her faint, "Come in." Veronica was sitting up in bed, looking at pictures on her phone. Pictures of Elijah, I assumed. She looked up as I entered. Surprise and uncertainty crossed her face. "Imani," she said, setting her phone aside. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't either," I admitted, taking the chair beside her bed. An awkward silence stretched between us, years of friendship and months of betrayal, creating a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. "How's Elijah doing today?" I asked finally, seeking neutral ground. A small smile touched Veronica's lips. "Better. They said his oxygen levels are improving. He might be off the ventilator soon." "That's wonderful news," I said sincerely. Despite everything, I wanted this child to thrive. "Why are you here, Imani?" Veronica asked suddenly. "At the hospital every day, visiting Elijah, after everything I did to you." I took a deep breath, asking myself the same question I'd been wrestling with for weeks. "I'm not entirely sure," I replied honestly. "At first, I think I came because I felt connected to Elijah through Liam, through the genetic material that was supposed to be for our family. But now," I broke off, trying to find the right words. "Now?" Veronica prompted. "Now I come because I care about him," I said simply. "He's innocent in all of this, and he needs all the love and support he can get." Tears filled Veronica's eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness, not after what I did." "No, you don't," I agreed, my voice soft but firm. "What you did was unforgivable. You manipulated Liam and me. You stole something precious from us." Veronica nodded, accepting my words without argument. "I know, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. But," I continued, "holding on to anger doesn't help anyone. Not me, not Liam, and certainly not Elijah. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I considered her question carefully. "I don't know. Forgiveness isn't something I can force, but I'm trying to move forward, and that's a start." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I understand, and thank you for being here for Elijah. He's going to need strong people in his life." We talked a little longer about Elijah's progress and the challenges ahead. It wasn't exactly closure, but it was a step towards something akin to peace. As I stood to leave, Veronica said, "Liam still loves you, you know. He never stopped." I paused at the door, unsure how to respond. "Things are complicated now." "Because of Elijah?" Veronica asked. "Partly," I admitted. "And because of everything that's happened between us." "Elijah would be lucky to have you in his life," Veronica said quietly. "As a friend, or—" She left the rest unsaid. I left without answering, my thoughts in a whirlwind. Could I truly build a life with Liam now, with Elijah and Veronica permanently in the equation? Was I strong enough for that? The answer came to me gradually, over long nights of reflection and quiet moments in the NICU, watching Elijah grow stronger day by day. I realized that love, real, lasting love, wasn't about perfect circumstances or easy choices. It was about facing challenges together, about choosing each other despite the complications. A year later, an unexpected family. 3 months after Elijah's birth, on the day he was finally strong enough to leave the hospital, I met Liam in the NICU waiting room. He looked exhausted but happy. The weight of worry finally lifted from his shoulders. "He's coming home today," he said, a smile lighting up his face. "The doctors say he's out of the woods." "That's wonderful news," I said, genuinely thrilled for the little fighter who had defied all odds. Liam's smile faded slightly, uncertainty replacing his joy. "I've been wanting to talk to you about something. About us." My heart beat faster. "About us?" "These past few months, having you here through everything, you've reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place. Your strength, your compassion, your capacity to forgive." "I haven't forgiven everything," I reminded him gently. "I know," he acknowledged, "and I'm not asking you to. But I am asking for a chance to rebuild what we had, to create something new together." "With Elijah," I said, not a question but a statement. "Yes," Liam confirmed. "He's my son, and he always will be. Veronica and I have worked out a co-parenting agreement. She's moving to Seattle to be closer to her sister, but she'll visit regularly. It won't be simple, but I think we can make it work." He paused, searching my face. "That is, if you're willing to try." I thought about the long journey that had brought us to this moment. The pain, the betrayal, the unexpected twists of fate. I thought about the tiny child who had captured my heart, despite the circumstances of his conception. And I thought about the man in front of me, imperfect, but sincere, in his desire to make amends. "I'm willing to try," I said finally. And the hope that bloomed in Liam's eyes made my decision feel right. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. Rebuilding trust would take time. Learning to co-parent with Veronica would require patience and maturity from all of us. But as Liam pulled me into a hug, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. The possibility of happiness, of family, of love reclaimed. Sometimes life takes us on unexpected detours. Sometimes the path to happiness isn't straight, but winding, with obstacles that seem insurmountable. But sometimes, if we're brave enough to face those trials, it gives us something better than we ever dared to hope for. 1 year later. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Liam asked, adjusting Elijah on his hip as we stood on Veronica's front porch. "We could have met at the park like usual." "I'm sure," I said, though my stomach fluttered with nerves. "It's Elijah's first birthday. We should celebrate it together." Liam squeezed my hand. His wedding ring, newly placed there just 3 months ago, caught the summer sunlight. "You're incredible, you know." Before I could reply, the door opened, revealing Veronica with a tired smile. "You made it. Come in. Everything's ready." We followed her into the house she'd bought after moving back to town 6 months ago. Though she had initially moved to Seattle as planned, she had eventually decided to return so she could be more actively involved in Elijah's life. It had been an adjustment for all of us, but we were making it work. "There's the birthday boy!" Veronica exclaimed, holding out her arms for Elijah, who went to her happily. At 1 year old, he was the picture of health, with no signs of his premature birth, save for being slightly smaller than average. His dark curls and bright eyes were all Liam, but his smile, that was purely Veronica. "The cake's in the kitchen," Veronica said, leading the way. "Nothing fancy, just a small one for pictures. I know we agreed no gifts until he's older, but I couldn't resist getting him one little thing." I followed, carrying the diaper bag and watching the ease with which Veronica interacted with Liam now. There was no lingering romantic tension, just the comfortable rapport of parents focused on their child's well-being. The kitchen was decorated with a few balloons and a "Happy First Birthday" banner. A small cake sat on the counter, adorned with a single candle. This is perfect, I said, and I meant it. Simple, but special. Veronica gave me a grateful look. I wasn't sure what would be appropriate, since we're all still figuring this out. We'll figure it out together, I assured her, surprising myself with how much I meant it. After we sang to Elijah and let him smash a small portion of cake, most of which ended up on his face and in his hair, Veronica turned to us with an unusually serious expression. "I have something I need to tell you both," she said, wringing her hands nervously. "I've been offered a job in Seattle, a good one with my sister's company." "Oh," Liam said, looking at me. "Are you considering taking it?" Veronica nodded slowly. "I am, but before I make any decisions, I wanted to talk to you about Elijah, about what's best for him." My heart constricted. Despite our complicated history, Veronica had proven to be a devoted mother. Elijah loved her deeply, and she had worked hard to establish a positive co-parenting relationship with Liam, and, by extension, with me. "What are you thinking?" I asked cautiously. Veronica took a deep breath. "I've been watching you with him, Imani. The way you care for him, you love him like your own, and he adores you. Anyone can see it." "He adores you too," I pointed out. "I know," she said with a small smile. "But maybe it's not about who he adores more. Maybe it's about what environment would be most stable for him." She looked at Liam. "When you two got married, I saw how happy Elijah was at the ceremony, how comfortable he feels in your home with you both. He has a real family there." "He has a real family with you too," Liam said softly. "A part-time one," Veronica corrected. "And I'm still figuring out who I am, what I want out of life. I thought having a baby, having Liam, would fill the void I felt. But it didn't, because that void was something I needed to address within myself." She turned to me, her eyes earnest. "I've been going to therapy, working through my issues, and one thing has become very clear. What I did to you was wrong on every level. I can never undo it, but I can try to make choices now that will, in some small way, make up for it." "What are you suggesting?" I asked, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. "I'm suggesting that maybe Elijah would be better off living with you and Liam full-time," Veronica said, the words clearly difficult for her. "With me visiting regularly, of course, being a part of his life, but not the primary day-to-day caregiver." Liam looked stunned. "Veronica, are you sure about this? He's your son." "He's our son," she corrected, including me in her gaze. "All three of us in different ways, and I love him enough to want what's best for him, even if it's not easiest for me." I felt tears welling in my eyes. This was a gift I had never expected, never even considered asking for. The chance to help raise Elijah as my own, to be a true mother to him instead of just his father's wife. "We would never keep him from you," I promised Veronica. "He needs his mother." "I know you wouldn't," she said, smiling through her own tears. "That's why I trust you with this decision. You've shown more grace and forgiveness than I ever deserved." The three of us talked for hours after Elijah went down for his nap, discussing logistics, legal considerations, and how to make the transition as smooth as possible for him. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was a necessary one. As Liam and I drove home that night, Elijah sleeping peacefully in his car seat, I felt a sense of wholeness I hadn't expected to find in this complicated situation. "How are you feeling?" Liam asked, reaching across the console for my hand. "Overwhelmed." "Core," I admitted. "Grateful, a little scared." He squeezed my fingers. "We can do this. Together." And I believed him. Our path to this moment had been unconventional, filled with pain and betrayal and unexpected twists. But here we were, a family forged through adversity, rather than despite it. Later that night, after we had tucked Elijah into the nursery, we had finally finished decorating. Liam and I stood by his crib, watching him sleep. "He looks just like you when he smiles," I whispered, not wanting to wake him. "Do you think we'll ever tell him?" Liam asked, About how he came to be? I considered the question carefully. Someday, when he's old enough to understand, he has a right to know his story. It's a pretty good story, Liam said, wrapping an arm around my waist. It is, I nodded, but it has a happy ending. As we left the nursery, hand in hand, I thought about the strange, winding road that had led us here. A year ago, I had stood at the back of a restaurant, clutching an envelope of secrets, my heart filled with righteous anger and pain. Now I stood in a nursery, my heart filled with love for a child I never expected to call my own. Life rarely gives us what we expect. Sometimes it gives us something harder, something that tests us to our limits. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to face those trials, it gives us something better than we ever dared to hope for. Our family wasn't conventional. Our story wasn't simple. But it was ours, and it was beautiful in its complicated way. And that was more than enough. What a journey, right? If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more incredible tales of resilience and unexpected love. Your support means the world.